of a Jesus girl. Jesus girl. Hey, it's the diary of a Jesus girl. Let the wings of the Spirit of the Lord just a swirl. You are in it, but you know you're not a part of this world. And for the swine, you should never cast your pearl. Yes, it's just the diary of a Jesus girl. The diary of a Jesus girl.
Welcome to the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast, where we discuss real-life issues of the committed Christian woman. This podcast will inspire you to love Jesus and impact lives like Jesus. And now it's time for your host, Crystal Day, award-winning author, speaker, and Christian coach.
Welcome to another episode of the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast. Woo, woo. Listen, it's just another amazing Thursday that I'm here with you. And I have another amazing episode lined up for you. You know, last week we spoke about mental illness, mental health. Quite a few persons have been reaching out, because they didn't understand the difference between these things. And, based on where we are at in the society, we are so happy that people are being more bold to have these conversations, that, you can be a Christian and have mental health issues or mental illness. But even how Samuel spoke last week about how to manage it, etc., I believe I think it was so educating. I felt like I was learning and not just being inspired, but I appreciate last week's episode. So for this week, I wanted to continue to just tap into having this conversation, but this time we're talking a little bit about depression. And I appreciate my guest this week as we are having this conversation, because I know she's a Jesus girl like me. So, she's very active in ministry, very active, she loves Jesus, but she also came out on her podcast and shared that she went through a spell of depression. And I remember I was cooking while I was listening to that episode, and I was like, whoa. Imagine if more women of God were as honest and, as vulnerable as this, and it takes another level of authenticity to have this conversation, but still say, I'm depressed, even though I love Jesus. So I'm looking forward to see where this conversation goes. And she also was integral with me starting this podcast. So I'm even more excited to have, probably some of you have an idea who I'm talking about, because in the early part, I've spoken about, starting this podcast and doing the podcast course with her. And she's like, Crystal, you need to go. Like, you're already putting out enough content. Just do it already. And it took me like 2 years from that, to launch. But boy, I've been enjoying this podcast journey. So I'm so, so happy to have Mrs. Heneka Porter in the building. Podcast queen. Welcome to the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast.
Thank you, Crystal. I'm balling up.
Listen, I love you. Like, one thing, I've told you many times, I love and appreciate and I admire the work that you do. And just a little bit about Heneka. Heneka is an entrepreneur, corporate podcast host, 5 times author, international speaker, and the host of the Entrepreneurial podcast and TV show. She has interviewed the likes of Lisa Nichols. I love Lisa Nichols. That was an amazing episode. Les Brown, Richard Branson, John Lee Dumas. Listen, she said Goodin. She goes out for the big wigs. She ain't about the little people, right? She's about going for the big wigs, right? So I love her boldness. She is, just doing amazing things here in Jamaica, hosts a Leader Cast event. She writes for the Leader Cast blog, and she's just doing amazing things again. So I want to welcome you to the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast. I won't even go any further than say, I want you to just start with the question that we ask every person that is on the podcast. Tell us about your journey. How did you come to Christ? What was your salvation story? So you can just jump in. What was life like before Christ? Tell us a little bit about you, not the bio you, but the you. And then, of course, share the salvation story.
OMG. So, which one must start now, Crystal? All right. So I grew up in church, I grew up being a part of the United Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. It's like my background, the foundation on which I have been built. My faith journey has been built. I started out that journey just going to camp. First of all, I got baptized at 16, and I think I got baptized because everybody in my church was getting baptized, all the young people. I'm a pastor, pressure me, so I just get baptized too because I thought it was a thing to do. I really didn't have an understanding of what it means to be in a relationship with Jesus. I just understood it too. Okay, you give your life to God. You just know you're not supposed to do the wrong things, whatever we consider the wrong things. You're just going through the motion. Right. I had a lot of challenges at a young age. And I saw the church at the time as a way of, because we're involved in a lot of youth activities and stuff, and was involved in, going to camps, as I mentioned before, going to, just sporting events, taking part in all these church activities. So that happened was I was 16. By the time I was, say, 18, I pretty much left the church as a man. And having left the church, I kind of felt like I didn't quite understand that journey of what it means to be a Christian. So I started having a relationship with who is my now husband. And I thought that was the end of it. Sex and all of these things got involved. I just figured, okay, because growing up in church, I was never really educated on, okay, so you make mistakes. It doesn't mean that you're no longer a part of the family of God. What it means is that you would have made a slip and, you just need to seek forgiveness and come right back. And that's a journey that is about the Christian life. You make mistakes, you fall down, you get up. But I just felt condemned, and I just felt like, okay. And so it took me years before I would have come back. That was in 2010, when the Lord, because I kept asking the Lord, what is he going to do to get me back? Because I'm stubborn and I just need to have, I need something very, tangible and direct and straightforward. What God did, I won't necessarily share that right now because of respect for some persons. I won't go into the details of it, but suffice it to say that I was given a rude awakening, and I just felt like, I tell people that I liken my coming home story on to, let's say somebody's about to fall, a child is about to fall over a rail, the railroad, and the train is coming so fast, and all that mother had to do to get the child back was to grab the child so hard, break the child's hand in the process. And that's how I felt God dealt with me when I had to get back, into the fold. It was a very painful journey, but here I am. And even along the way, it's not like I've been perfect, far from it, but it's a journey that I have been very intentional about staying on. And, I know both sides of the coin. I know what it is like to not be a part of, not have a relationship with God. And I know what it is like to have a relationship. And so no matter what, I'm resolute that I will continue to stay that path,
Amen. Listen, the rocky road story of Christianity, right? And that's what we want the conversation that we want to have on the Diary for Jesus Girl podcast, because somebody that's listening, you have gone through your rocky path with God. This faith walk is not always the bells and whistles that, sometimes is preached to us in the initial stage. Sometimes the faith gets so shaken that we just take forever to go back. But, if somebody that's listening, I hope you don't be as stubborn. You can, sometimes when we ask God to grant us these things to let us come, when we get the shake up, we can't manage, right? We can't manage. So know that you can. If you are listening, we're going to encourage you. Just run, come to God, right? Just run, come to him. Yeah, but let's jump into the conversation of depression. One, talk to us about just your journey with this depression, and particularly you had shared the story. I guess you can share the story that you shared on your podcast regarding that stint with depression. Also, I knew that in 2021, I believe, you shared also that you were going through a very rough season, being sick and stuff, and it's not things that, because you share these things publicly on a podcast. So I guess, you can just tell us a little bit.
Definitely. I'll give the details, right? I can share that. So I guess my upbringing my childhood experiences would have set the stage for depression and anxiety and all of these things. And what I mean by that is, so I'm the product of a teenage mom who was, of course, trying to figure out how to be a mother, I guess, at the time. And I didn't have my father around, didn't know him until I was 11 years old. I grew up having those childhood tantrums, throwing those childhood tantrums. I would just be angry, and the little thing would trigger me really, really seriously angry, because I thought it was my fault. As a child, you think you don't have your parents around, you think you did something wrong, right? And it's my fault. I remember days when I would literally take a glass and just throw it down and just break it, and the lampshade, the home sweet home lampshade kind of vibe. Yeah, take that and just throw it down, and just anger, and didn't have the self-esteem and all of that. So attempted suicide, just so many things, just didn't have that self-worth and knowing who I am, and the identity in Christ, and just knowing who I am. So I didn't have that growing up. So, and I didn't realize how badly it had affected me. I mean, sexual abuse was also a part of it as well. I was abused starting from the very age of 9 years old, and it continued on for a very long time. And this happened with a neighbor. So all those things combined really put me in a space that was so dark. And I didn't realize it until when I got older and began to psychoanalyze my life and everything. And I realized how much those things would have affected me. So I would start, going to the doctor, and they would give me things like Paxil. After a while, they would put me on things like Xanax and so on. And I developed, I think in my early 20s, a serious challenge with sleep, right? So I would sleep for a little bit, and then it just wouldn't happen. Like for nights and nights upon end, I would not be able to sleep. So I think that's a part of it. That's a start of it. But in 2020, and I've always been like, since I became a Christian, I kind of figure out who I am, what my purpose is. And I saw these things as rather, than them being obstacles and stuff, they began to be my motivators. And I recognize that everything that happened to me happened for a reason. So all things work together for good for they that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So there is that. But And I've over time developed a way of dealing with my issues, or so I thought. But in 2019, I think things started happening. And what started happening was that, again, I slowed down a bit towards the end of 2019 because I really wanted to get some rest and so on. And I realized I was just crying for no reason, Crystal. I would just be, up every single day because I slowed down, decided that, I'm going to take things slow, not much work, not doing all of these things that I'm used to doing. And I would get up days upon days upon days and just start crying for no reason. I remember getting some sleeping pills at the time as well because I wasn't sleeping. And I started taking, I was introduced to marijuana tea. And I would mix it in milk so that I would get the THC effect. And I would do that. Take that tea when I'm doing that tea would help me for a couple of nights. And then after that, nothing. In early 2020, January 9, I'll never forget that night. The night before, I had taken a prescription sleep drug. And having taken that drug, it was still in my system, but it didn't really help me to sleep because after a while, my body developed tolerance to all of these medications, right? And so it didn't help me to sleep. And the following night, I had done the marijuana tea. Well, my friend, obviously, I had it was too high of a dosage for me. So I did the tea And then the drug was still in my system on the night of January 9. And I took that about 10 o'clock, about 10 o'clock. By 12 o'clock, I cannot explain what started to happen to me. Just say I had an overdose, right? And it wasn't a very good experience. By the morning, the feeling I had never went away until in the morning. I had to be rushed to the doctor for them to pump, stuff off in my system. I was hyperventilating. I was literally dying, and I had to pray through that night. Breathe. I literally had to breathe and war through for my life that night, because I knew that was it. If I had just laid there and not do anything, I had to seriously war. So that happened, and that was very, very traumatic. But knowing the type of person I am, okay, it was traumatic. I went to the doctor. They put me on 4 bags of drips and Valium and whatever they had to do to get it out of my system. I was traumatized, but yeah, I had a book to finish writing, and I finished writing my 5th book, and I did some speaking engagements in the US at the early part of 2020. That would be like in February, March. And I didn't really rest or process what was happening to me. So it wasn't until April 1, I'll never forget, I'm in the middle of a live interview and I just began to literally pass out in that interview. And I had to ask, the host to stop, and I thought I would just rest and be well. Well, that began the journey of my downward trajectory where my health is concerned. So everything from anxiety, depression, acid reflux, lethargy, hyperventilation, you name it, everything that you could possibly think about physically. I mean, even symptoms of menopause, premenopause, I was going through. I'm like, what? I'm hot when it's cold. I'm hyperventilating. My pulse rate is high. Just, I cannot explain what I went through. And I went that period, I said to people that, if it is that God allowed me to go through that just for me, I'm on fear. Seriously, because with all of that. So in a nutshell, that is what happened health-wise. And I can pause here and allow you to process all that I've just said.
I mean, I feel like everybody else, I just kind of want to hear, what happened next.
What happened next, right? Yes. So that started on April 1, as I mentioned, and I've been through, because we just couldn't find what was happening to me. I was rushed to Andrews Hospital, and by the time I went, they did a series of tests. Nothing. They could find nothing. All they told me was that my pulse rate was high, and my white blood cell count was also high. What was the reason for all of that? Nobody knows. I did all kind of things. I went to about 12 doctors, including a psychiatrist, because I had to find out what was wrong with me. They couldn't find out till at one point I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. But the thing is, it became a chicken or egg situation, because having been put on so many different sleeping aids over time, when I decided that I'm going to stop taking these pills, I realized that the depression, and let me tell you something, I went into a depression that was so dark, because I'm trying to explain the depression that I went to, because I don't want to hear people talk about, they're sad, or, I was just sad. No, depression is not sadness. Depression is something that it's like a bottomless pit. You're in this dark, bottomless pit, and you have no idea how you got there, and worse yet, how to get out of it. Right? Remember now, I'm a Christian. I'm a woman of faith. I believe God. I trust God. Right? And I'm experiencing all of this. And there is just so much shame and guilt and everything that people want to put on people, that when they're going through this, just read the scriptures. Fine. Yes, read the scriptures. That's okay. And you must do that. But at the same time, allow people to process what they're going through, because just as you have a heart condition, or you have whatever physical ailment, situations of the mind need attention and should not be pushed under the carpet and be spiritualized away. It has to be dealt with, and it should be dealt with. So, I stopped taking the pills for a while, and I recognized that when I didn't take the pills, I was no longer as depressed. It took a while, and as I stopped taking the pills, I felt a lot less depressed. And there were nights when, although I couldn't sleep, and let me tell you something, I could not sleep this period of not sleeping, insomnia, is not a period of, okay, so you can't sleep now, will you sleep tomorrow night? No. I'm telling you, for a year, without the help of a sleeping pill, I would not sleep. Or more. It got so bad. I mean, I had to eventually seek therapy. Yes, I was seeing a psychiatrist, but that was just like a temporary measure. But just recently, I even decided that I'm going to be doing therapy. And you know what, Crystal, when my therapist told me, I went into, I was on a period of 21 days fast, and I went to see my therapist the day before the fast ended, because I was getting some downloads in my system from that fast and stuff. And when I went to see the therapist, and she said to me, she wants to see, I was telling her what was happening to me physically, and even though I'm still having trouble sleeping. And she began to question me about all the things that I've taken, and she wanted me to give her a list and the dosage and everything. And when I look on the list, when I think about the list, and she said to me, you know that you're addicted to drugs. I'm like, what? Okay, so she said that to me, and she gave me an assignment that I need to go home and just, get to my doctors and get the list and so on that I've been taking and whatever. And I started compiling the list from memory of all the pills that I've taken, because by this time, like, almost nothing worked, and they work for a night or two, and then that's nothing. And I kept having to increase the dosage. So the 2 days after she told me that, I sat at my dining table and I literally bawled. Like, it just hit me what she told me, that I'm addicted to drugs. And I sat down and I bawled, and I said, God, but how good Christian girl fit addicted to drugs? Like, people with drug addiction are people who sell them house, sell them car, to go get a fix. I am not like that. You know what I mean? But what had happened to me is that over time, my brain had gotten used to the chemicals to put me to sleep. So if my brain doesn't get chemical in the night, it does not recognize the fact that I want to sleep. And so I know I have to be going through a process to unlearn all of that, right? And the truth is, people may question, oh, you're always so positive and you're always sharing all of these things, and you're positive and, being positive and encouraging people. Yeah, but here's the thing. So now, over time in my adult years and my later adult years, I have learned how to deal with my situation and process them, and even more so now than previous years before. But in my earlier years, there were situations that I had and I never dealt with them. I had obviously pushed them on the carpet, moving right along, because I'm that type of person. Next, moving right along, nothing holds me back. I must get on. The show must go on, whatever it is. I don't care. I must move forward. But the thing is, when those things started happening to me, rather than knowing how to deal with them or even having somebody to help me go through them and to process them, what I recognized I was doing when I couldn't sleep and stuff was to draw for pills and stuff. So my brain hadn't gotten used to processing, and those things lie in the subconscious. And that's what happened, because your subconscious needs to process every single thing. Even when your conscious believe that you're fine, your subconscious, if you have not dealt with it, whether you talk with it or, talk to somebody about it, or, you just do something to actually deal with it. If you don't process that, it's in your subconscious, and it's there, and it has to find a way to get out. So although in my later years, I've come to know how to deal with situation and process it, those that from before were not processed, and those are what got me crumbled, right? So, you're on mute. Okay.
No, so, I have some questions, and I guess we can just pause the story and just jump in to what would you say to somebody that is now saying, she didn't pray enough, or, she didn't read her word enough, or she didn't have enough faith. This is why she's where she is.
Well, here's the thing. Faith is what kept me through all of this. I must tell you, because I kept saying to myself, I honestly said to myself, what if I didn't know God? And I can just imagine other people who don't have that kind of a hope and are going through whatever it is that they're going through and don't know. You see, I have an anchor and I'm centered by that. So no matter what storm is happening around me, you see, if the storm isn't if the water has not gotten inside of you, you can't drown. So no matter what you're going around, what is going on around you, the waves coming and they're crashing and they're going along and stuff, if it don't get in there, you're not going to damage you, right? So it was my faith that anchored me and kept me going. A lot of time, I mean, if you see my journal, I journal like there's no tomorrow. Right. And I kept praying and I kept reading the word and I kept believing. And I remember that is why in last year, at the beginning of last year, I had an event called Slow Down and Live, because one of the times when I was near death, and I tell you in 2020, it was near death for me. Right. And I remember saying just in my spirit that I want something to read. And I'm in my office and I just randomly picked up a daily bread that was from 2008. And in the first, on the first day, it says slow down and live. And when I read it, I knew that God was talking to me, because with everything that was going on, I was just going on and on and on. I'm writing books, I'm doing entrepreneurial stuff. I'm speaking here. I'm doing podcasts. I'm doing all of these things. I'm running businesses, and I was not taking the time to rest. And so it does not matter whether or not you're praying. It doesn't matter whether or not you're reading the word, or things are going to come at you. It's just so happened that depression came at me, right? Severe illness came at me, but I was resolute because I knew that there's a thing that says, I always say to myself that purpose cannot die prematurely. And I just knew that it was not my time. It was not my time. So it doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter what is going on around me. My anchor holds firm. So we need to stop passing off judgment on people about they're not praying enough. And so that is what caused people to not want to talk. People don't want to talk when they're going through things because the condemnation, the criticisms, oh, you're a Christian. And yeah, I'm a Christian. And we know that as Christians, we go through more challenge than ever because we're a target, right? Yes. There's always good and evil, yes. So we're a target. And you have to, I know that whatever I've been through is to help somebody else. And it's even to prevent me from being judgmental of anybody else, because I have gone through some things in my life. I have no rights. I have done some things. I've gone through some things. I have absolutely no right to judge anybody. I cannot. Right. And so it allows me to be sensitive to other people and what it is that they're going through. And coupled with that, with all of that happening, last year, my husband got a stroke. And I thought, with me just coming out of my health challenge and still trying to heal, my husband having gone through that stroke, and it was like, for me, it was even worse than my own situation, because I felt like I had hit the end of my rope. There's a song that I found throughout this time, and it's Lauren Daigle, Hold On to Me.
Lauren Daigle. Yeah.
Daigle, Hold On to Me. That song, it was like, the first time I heard the song, I just bawled, because it's like, I don't know, she just has this anointing to put the words together to express how people are feeling, So yeah, I would say don't be judgmental, because we all have our crosses to bear,
Yes. And it's funny because I made a post recently and it said the purpose of faith isn't always to keep us from going through storms. Most of them carry us through the storm.
Absolutely.
And when you said that, I'm like, well, that quote, the purpose of faith always to keep us from going through storms. But sometimes we actually think that, okay, faith, we just need enough faith so we don't go through anything. Your faith needs to be big enough so we don't experience loss or we don't experience depression or we don't go through, but not realizing that sometimes.
David, oh my gosh. Hello, come on. Let's talk about depression and Christians, and look at David.
Yes.
He experienced depression.
Elijah.
So they've been through it, when you think about Psalm 42 and when you read that Psalm, it's like you're thinking, them depressed mean good company. No problem, no sweat.
Yes. Yes. And here's where I want to go though. So you mentioned, faith is what held you. And, it's so important that somebody get that, because like you said, if you're not a believer and you don't know Christ and you're going through these things, this is why you find that the suicide rate is so high, and, they just so many things, because, and one of the other things I heard you mention that is so important is purpose. Purpose held you. You kept saying, You were purposed for more. You have and get whatever help you need because God has made me for more. I have more work to do. Purpose. Wow. Wow. So Heneka, go ahead, darling.
No, I was saying too, and there were times when I needed people to carry me, so I couldn't carry myself. But when you'd have made deposits, and that is why it's so important to make deposit when you're in your good times. Deposit of praying and fasting and all of these things, because in that moment, it was the things that I would have deposited. Whatever I would have deposited, I was withdrawing at that time to carry me, and having a select group of people around me who were praying for me when I was too weak to pray for myself. Like one day I just to show you how weak I was, just walking around my house one day, and I don't have an extremely big house. Like I don't have a big house. Just walking around my house one day, it was enough to celebrate because I didn't have the energy to walk. I couldn't eat. A meal that would normally take me half an hour would take me 2 hours to complete. It was, I look back and I'm like, God, the sustaining power. So sometimes we think about, wanting God to do more for us and all of these things, but we also have to think about the sustaining power and just God sustaining us through time. Sometimes we're praying for more, but the fact that He's sustaining us through a hard time, the faith without works is dead. And so the work that you put in, with your own healing, go to the doctor and do whatever you need to do and so on. But in addition to that, you just have this firm, unwavering belief that it is going to be okay. And I knew it was going to be okay. It felt dark and dismal. Believe me, if you see me searching some things online and one of the times I started searching for, I would Google it, YouTube, the weirdness of things, will people ever gone to a situation where they never ever sleep again? And I came across some situations where people have situations and never ever sleep again. And it became so scary. And it just, oh gosh. You know what? Ask the question now, cause.
I guess my question is, the therapy aspect. So you talk about, the taking but the Christian woman and therapy. What are your thoughts? Like, what are your thoughts for a Jesus girl, a Christian man, woman? I had a gentleman recently on the podcast, Minister Roscoe, and he shared that he's listen, men, we need to go and get therapy. Like he talks a lot about, how therapy has helped him. And he didn't go through half what you're going through that per se in terms of that. It wasn't, but he just knew that he needed to talk to somebody professional about dealing with his emotions and stuff. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation more. But what are your thoughts?
So there is somebody I want to introduce you and your audience to, Dr. Caroline Leaf. I don't know if you've come across her before.
Yes,
she's a Christian neurologist. Actually, she spoke at LeaderCast on one of the stagings. She's a Christian neurologist, and she does a really good job of going through the mind, body, emotion, brain connection. And it is important to recognize that if we need help with, if we're going to get married, we do marriage counseling, right? Well, some people do, not everybody. But if we are going through wanting to choose a career, we get career coaching. Whatever it is, there's always some form of coach, some kind of guidance that we see. We go to school, for Christ's sake, because we want to be taught, right? In the same way, our emotions and mind and everything is very complex. It's extremely complex. And we have developed this taboo where we don't want to talk about things relating to the mind, because we're going to be seen as soft, and we're going to be seen as we're not strong and we don't know how to manage. Well, that's why you need to get help. That is why they are there. And God has given man wisdom and insight into things that we don't necessarily know, right? And so there's no shame in getting what you need. if it is, that's what you need to help you through. And even though right now, because I've changed my whole diet and I'm more natural, in terms of what I eat and my lifestyle and everything, I am not big on prescription drugs. But if you need something to help you through, like last year when my husband got a stroke, I just felt like I could not cope. I remember calling some friends and bawling, like, I don't know how to get through this. I absolutely don't know what to do. I remember a friend saying to me, just think about what you will do in the next second. Don't think about not even the next minute. Just think about what's best for you in the next second. In the next second, it could be to just talk to somebody, just call somebody. Right? You need help. And if people are professionally trained to help, there is no shame with that. People study themselves to study to show themselves approve, and approving comes in dealing with the mind. Approval comes in dealing with all sort of issues that we face. So nothing wrong with it. I mean,
people should get career coaching. People should get marriage coaching or counseling. But they don't, right? That's just the truth. And then you wonder why you're so unsatisfied in so many areas, I feel like, because you're trying to figure out everything by yourself. Like, you are trying to do everything by yourself. Like, you can't. We're one body and you have different persons. This is why some people want a book coach. There are people that can write a book by themselves and they don't need a coach. But there are other people that saying, hey, I have these thoughts. I need somebody to help me to process these thoughts, to get the book in my thoughts into an outline, to get the book out. Right. And I find that when people don't understand things, then they, especially believers, they are very critical or don't understand. Oh, why you need therapy? You just need Jesus. Why? Like, we need Jesus whether we need therapy or not. But let's jump into it. I feel like you shared a lot, and I'm sure people are now processing one. How did you get the courage and the courage and the transparency to be able to share this so publicly?
I think you see,
and let me add that you are a brand, you are an entrepreneur, you're a Christian woman. Like, we are taught that, as entrepreneurial, no, you don't want to say certain things, or as a Christian, you don't want to say anything that might be contradictory to how Christianity looks. But you have been boldly just sharing your little story. Tell us why, and if somebody is struggling to hide what's happening with them, like, what encouragement would you share?
I think, so maybe I overcompensate for what I didn't have growing up, and that is confidence and, self-esteem and all of these things. I feel so confident in myself right now. Like, I literally don't care what others think. Like, I get to that point where I really don't care. You have a problem with it? No, because guess what? At the heart of all of us is a desire to connect. And the way in which we connect most and most authentically is via stories. Stories are what, human interest stuff. That is why we will, when we see something on TV or in the papers or whatever about, with a human interest, we want to hear more, because we are, we're connected to each other by stories, and it's a story. So pride is what prevents us from really sharing. And we have to also use wisdom, because the truth is there are some things right now that, even though I personally want to share, I am mindful of other people in my story, that there are some things I don't necessarily say outright just yet, right? In the fullness of time, however, I will share. Because I believe that everybody is struggling with something, and the struggles that I face, it's not just for me. It is for somebody else who is going through that. The Bible does tell you about whatever you're going through now. When you go through it, when you've been delivered from it, your job is to help others through. So for me, that boldness comes with really, I know who I am, and who I am is not dependent on what Crystal is going to think about me. Who I am is not dependent on whether this organization or this body is going to, be in support of me because I speak. I mean, I have had situations where people, for whatever reason, they've been shunning me because whatever, I may not align to their brand, and that's fine. But knowing who I am is very critical to what I'm able to do in terms of my sharing. And I wouldn't change it for the world at all. I remember even when I was working, I have this level of boldness. I remember having this supervisor, this boss manager, and person would come up to me and say, but I don't understand. I was never disrespectful to him, mind you, but I was very forthright, right? And people would say to me, I don't understand how you're able to stand up to Mr. So-and-so and still not have your job. And so what I've always had in me is this notion of, okay, let me think about the worst that can happen as a result of this action that I'm about to take. I think about the worst case scenario in a situation. And as long as I can come to terms with what that worst case scenario might be, I'm good. So in the case of the job, it could be, all right, so because you speak out, you may not have a job. Well, if I don't have a job, I get a next one. If you fire me, I get one next one. You know what I mean? It may not be immediately, but I'll get one more if I'm working, you know, or if I'm supposed to get a client and whatever. Okay, I'll get another client. That's fine. Because I have to be true to me.
Yeah. And that comes with that level of self-awareness that you recognize that you add value to life. I think a lot of people, I don't know, I just believe that a lot of people don't accept that they add value to life. Like, you want to believe with your heart that one, God has purposed you to be here. Like, you are not a spear, no matter what your parents say, oh, you know, you're a mistake. No, like, to God, you were purposed to be here. So you add value. And if for some reason you are looking and you're saying, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't even know if I feel valuable to my family, you know, I don't even know if I'm gone, they would miss me. It means that, you know, you will probably need to tap a little bit more into the Lord to just seeking, okay, God, why am I here? Like, show me how I can add value to other people's life. Because that's the best way to find your purpose. How can I share? Heneka knows that she has some other people that she wants to coach to launch their podcast. You know, there's some other people left for her to help them to find their voice. You know, she knows that for now, you know, until God says then. So you want to find that. You want to find that passion and purpose and that value that you add to life. And I really want to encourage somebody, even as we're talking about, you know, the idea of mental illness, because as Samuel explained last week, you know, he spoke about there are psychological things, there are genetic things, there are, of course, spiritual things that can have implications on your mental health, but also mental illness. And he spoke, and if you haven't listened to it, I want you to go back and listen, but then also, even as you pray and fast and stuff, there are resources like therapy and coaching and counseling and, you know, that you can tap into to help to move the needle. So, Heneka, as I close for this week though, here's where I want you to go. I want you to talk to somebody. You know, before you talk to the person, I want you to share, you know, how do you really and truly keep going, right? Even as we are wrapping up a Jesus girl and depression, what would you, you know, what would you have done anything differently? You know, how do you still manage to show up? I know you said faith, but probably you can share some other practical things that keep you going. I know you said faith and purpose. Those are the two things that keep coming up. But is there anything that anybody else can share, or is there anything else on your heart? You know, my desire for this podcast, you know, what is it that I want people when they listen to this? I want them to, whether you know Christ or not, is rough, right? The Bible tells us that in this world we would have troubles, right? And the troubles, but Lord said, you know, take heed, he has overcome the world. And that's what the difference between a believer and an unbeliever. Like, we have an anchor. You know, we have that faith to know that, hey, you know, I will make it. Like, God will take me through it. But, you know, when you don't know Jesus, you're just there, you know, trying to find different things, temporary things to fill that void. So is there anything else that you'd want to share?
So the first thing to recognize is that you're not for everyone. And I think that is also part of the response I would give to the question you asked me before, how it is that I manage to be authentic and so on. Yeah, I know I peeve people off sometimes by me sharing some things, and that's fine because I'm not for you. I am not for everyone, and I'm very mindful of that. Know who it is that you're here to serve. That is so important. Know who it is that you're here to serve, and that will help you to stay in your lane. That will help you to not wanting to compete. Like, I've gotten to this stage where, Crystal, I don't. Like, something I was sharing with Natasha right the other day on her program, that I feel so badly sometimes. Like, I just literally sometimes go on social media, post and run in this season because I'm not caught up with what everybody else is doing. And I don't, okay, let me see what Crystal is doing so I can outdo her, or let me see. No, I'm so not caught up in that. I'm caught up right now in the season in trying to figure out how to take care of myself the best way, right? So there are some things that are non-negotiable, and this translates into into how I approach life in general. So non-negotiables, my 7 a.m. meal and my 2 p.m. meal that I have every day, those 2 times of the day. Nobody calls me during that time. Nobody talks to me during that time. It is my time, my walking time. I walk 3 hours, 2 hours three times of the day, 3 times of the week. To a hill in Portmore Hill, like rigorous hill, really, really nice. So my walking, my meal time, my bedtime, which is a set time, my bedtime routine, and just looking internally every day, I assess myself. And, where am I today? Am I better than, how I was last week? And I literally assess myself. And I really also believe that I don't necessarily need to be doing. Like, I feel, although it appears right now that I'm doing so much, I'm doing a lot less. A lot of things that you're seeing now are as a result of seeds that would have been planted years before, and I'm reaping the rewards of them, right? Things are just coming to me, and I'm like, yes, Lord, thank you. Because in 2020, what I never shared before, and I know we're wrapping up, but what I never shared before shared with you, is that I became so anxious, because I was spending all this money on my health, spending lots of money on my health, right? And at the same time, I never have no energy and nothing to work. And no money was coming in. I'm spending money, but no money coming in. I'm like, God, what is going on here? And anxiety, like, I literally began to get anxious, and my back really got towards the wall, where I was at a place like, okay, God, I'm going to literally have to take you at your word that says, take no thought for tomorrow, right? And I literally hold to that, and I literally got to a place of surrender. Like, yeah, I didn't have a choice. So surrendering is just trying to figure things out your way. Pause. We're human beings and not human doings, right? And we're trying to do. But sometimes all we need to do is just be, right? And I kid you not. First of all, in 2020, at the end of it, when I really got some strength again to start working, that was towards the end, like about August or so. From August into December, I would have earned more money than I did in previous years, right? Because I got to the place of surrender, and I got to really faithfully tithing as well. So that's another thing. And since then, I realized that just me taking God at his word, literally holding him and accounting, and said, God, listen to me. You are going to be embarrassed, because I'm holding you to your word, not me. And the Lord honors his word above his very name. And as a result of that, whatever he says, he's going to do. The promises that he's made, he's going to keep them. And I hold to that. And I know not everybody is a Christian that is listening, but here's the thing. You can claim promises of God. All you need to do is just believe. Faith. Anybody can have faith. And that is what got me through. So just knowing that, your faith, the faith pillar there, knowing that you are purposed, whatever it is that, you were called to do on this earth, that you are the one to do it, not somebody else. Just staying in your lane, because your neighbor's grass may look green when you're looking from the other side. But if you water your lawn, like I was just watering my lawn a while ago, it was green too, right? So those are the things that have kept me proper dieting as well, because those things are important right now for me in this season.
Listen, I love what you said about doing, and God always confirm His word, because I made an announcement this year when I was giving my year in review that my word for 2022 is becoming, because like you, I am very goal oriented. I get caught up in doing things, so I don't look at what nobody else doing. I don't care. I measure what my potential is. These are things that I want to accomplish, and I'm a goal getter. I go and work and get them done. But then in sometimes doing things, you recognize that, who am I becoming? So, becoming is, similarly, I share, synonyms, being, and, just experience, and not just ticking off a goal on the goal, I got this goal, but who am I becoming? So I really, really appreciate that. And again, I just want to say I appreciate your honesty. Like you said, everybody won't appreciate it. Sometimes our society, especially our society, is in a state where we just need to have our pretty photos on Instagram, because we're building a brand, we're building our platform. And if you I've tested it many times, when I put up a photo with me having makeup versus me when I don't have our makeup, the likes, and you're like, because everybody wants the idea that this life is, everybody's life is perfect. And more, every time you listen to this podcast, you hear people sharing that, outside of the pretty pictures, I'm going through some stuff. I remember I shared, even when my sister was sick from the March, she didn't die until the December, and nobody, unless we were close, nobody knew that I was sleeping at the hospital every night. But I showed up on social media, and it wasn't that I wasn't being authentic or anything, but I try to protect my family privacy. So it's one thing for me to share my business, but I know I try to protect my family privacy. But you don't know what anybody's going through. You really don't know. And if you're listening to this podcast, again, I always say, share this episode with somebody, share the podcast with somebody, because you don't know who needs to hear. Somebody's struggling with depression that needs to hear from Heneka that you will make it. You will get through. You are purposed to live longer. That is not your portion in this season. Somebody needs to hear it. And you're listening because you don't know that they're going through it. You don't share this episode. But Heneka's bravely, courageously, fearlessly, confidently, purposefully shared her story. Not because she's trying to build a brand, but because she knows that the truth is, if I am going through it, that means somebody else will, or somebody else have, or somebody else is going through it. And if even what she went through can take them through, then it will be enough. So, Heneka, just tell us a little bit about what is it that you are working on? How can they connect with you? I know you have a business, you help with podcasts. Just tell them a little bit about you. But just briefly, something just dropped in my spirit. There's a question I wanted to ask. You said earlier that, when you were going through the things, you said, God, why me?
Yeah, and I literally...
That's a question that all of us ask when we're going through hard season. So just tap into that for a few minutes.
God, why am I going through this? It was just so sudden. I'm going through fine, and all of a sudden it's sickness come on. And why? What happened? I was fine before. I just had a great time in St. Martin towards the end of the year in 2019 and come over into 2020 when I came back home and all of this. But yeah, the serious statement I actually made more than a question was, God, if it is that I'm going through this for me alone, if you're allowing me to go through this for me alone, you're unfair, bad, because although I would have shared what it is I actually went through, Crystal, I don't think that I have the capacity to adequately explain it. I am still at a loss for words to describe how I was feeling, what I was going through. I remember one day, Simone had called me, Simone Clark called me, and she was like, she wanted to talk to me about podcasting as well. And I could barely speak with her. And I know she remember, I could barely speak with her because of, how weak I was feeling. And that particular day, I was feeling the strongest of the days that I've felt, So, and I recognize that, again, it was not just for me. It is to share with other people, and also to share some practical tips as well, because it's not just praying. It's not just, going to the doctor, whatever. It's also getting sunlight. You have no idea what the impact sunlight has on depression. Like, I would literally, and that was part of my therapy as I go to a naturopath, and they would tell me it was recommended that I go and sit in the sun for 1 hour every day. Lord have mercy. That was sometimes, and it will literally change my mood. So practical things people can do: walking, sunlight, lots of water, make sure that your space is pretty much aerated, and a lot of breeze coming through and air coming through and so on. All of those things have an impact on your mood. Drink lots of water, right? Eat lots of nuts and fruits and vegetables. Just all of those things that are generally good for your health would be good for any kind of a depression or anxiety that you're faced with.
So close with telling us a little bit about you.
Right. So before I tell about me, I want to say again, I want to say, Crystal, thank you so much for the opportunity to share this story on your platform, and congratulations to having launched this podcast. You never want to do it, and here it is. You are making waves with it. So congratulations, and all the amazing things that you are doing. I am seeing them, right? When I do go on social media, sometimes I am seeing them. So congrats. All right. About me. You pretty much say all of it in the intro, but anyways, right now I am definitely working. I'm trying to figure out what the direction is for my podcast, where I need to go with it. I have the TV show. We're now on a season break though. It airs on Business Access TV, which is something I wanted to do from 2018. And here it is now. They reached out to me like, look at God, in 2021, like 3 years. And all I had to do was just dust it off. Yeah. So that's that. And I'm producing, corporate podcast. The one I'm doing right now is for the Jamaica Stock Exchange. It's called the Jamaica Stock Exchange and You. Working on my 6th book. I'm doing a lot less right now, but things that are more impactful. So, and I'll share about the 6th book at some other time, but that is one of the things I'm working on. And I am more doing a lot of me. I am the words I have for this year: ease, grace, and surrender. So a lot less of doing, but I was trying to figure out what God wants in my life. I just recently changed church. I'm now going to Wafif. Yay. That's another interesting story. I'm on social media when I really get out there. Heneka Porter, you can find me, or you can find me at henekawatkisporter.com. Listen to the Entrepreneurial You on your favorite podcast app. And that's it.
All right. So again, I want you to connect with her, show her some love. I believe in supporting kingdom people, like support kingdom people, right? To choose to walk in God's will, purpose for your life is not always the easiest choice, but it's always the best choice. So I won't have nothing more to add than I want you to really share this podcast. Also leave a comment if you're listening on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening, I want you to leave a review, right? Many of these guests, when they share so openly, they want to know that you are being blessed by it, right? So just share. If this episode has blessed you, please just share it with somebody, but also leave a review, right? Leave a review. So God bless you. I will see you on another amazing episode of the Diary of a Jesus Girl podcast. I'm out.
Diary of a Jesus Girl. Jesus Girl. Hey, it's the Diary of a Jesus Girl.